Welcome back to Coin Hunt Daily, the place where ordinary pocket change turns into unbelievable treasure. Today you're about to discover 10 Lincoln Wheat Pennies that have sold for life-changing amounts of money. Some of these might be sitting in your old jar, covered in dust, or tucked away in an album you haven't opened in years. But don't blink. One of them recently sold for more than a brand new luxury SUV, and another for enough to pay off your entire mortgage. If you think a penny can't be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, think again. Hit that subscribe button now. You don't want to miss a single coin on this shocking countdown. First up, it's a coin that might seem all too common. A 1952 D Lincoln Wheat Penny. You've probably seen dozens like it in your lifetime. That deep brown tone, the worn edges, the familiar face of President Lincoln staring forward like he's been through it all. But here's the catch. This one didn't just rattle around in a pocket for decades. No. This circulated wheat penny sold for a staggering $74,000. And it wasn't even in perfect condition. Now let that sink in. It had been used, it had scratches, it had seen life. But what made it special wasn't its looks, it was its rarity. The Denver Mint struck over 746 million of these in 1952. So what made this one worth more than most people's entire annual income? It comes down to one simple truth. A tiny, nearly invisible mistake missed by the naked eye changed everything. This coin had a rare repunched mint mark, known among collectors as RPM. The D was stamped more than once, slightly off-center. At first glance, it just looks like a worn coin, but tilted just right under the light, and that double punch reveals itself. And that's where the value explodes. Now here's where it gets shocking. In average condition, it's worth just a few cents, maybe $1 if you're lucky. In a moderately circulated condition, one like this, the kind someone found in a tobacco tin in their late grandfather's attic, it fetched $74,000 at auction. Now imagine if you had one in uncirculated mint red condition with that same rare error. We're talking upwards of $250,000 or worse. If you pair that with perfect grading and eye appeal, some experts estimate this exact coin could sell for over $500,000. That's right, $500,000 for a penny. And it all came down to a tiny detail that most folks would miss without a magnifying glass. So how do you know if your 1952 D penny is valuable? First, check for that D mint mark. That tells you it came from Denver. Then, look closely, and I mean very closely, to see if it's doubled or slightly off-center. These repunched mint marks can make or break the value. And if the coin is still red in color, showing little to no wear, you're sitting on a potential gold mine. But don't think for a second that only uncirculated coins are worth money. This one was worn, scratched. It had character. But what it had most was rarity, and rarity is everything. Before we move to the next coin, take a second, go check your old penny jar, your drawer, your father's old cigar box, because the next one, it's even more shocking. And hey, if you're enjoying this journey so far, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. You don't want to miss what's a humble-looking 1956 D Lincoln Wheat Penny. Now, you might be thinking, 1956? That's not even a century old? But let me stop you right there. What looks like a rusty, forgotten penny to most people might actually be a sleeping giant in the coin world. This coin, minted in Denver, is part of the last wave of the iconic Wheat Penny series before it transitioned to the Lincoln Memorial Reverse in 1959. Millions were made, over 1.09 billion to be exact. But here's the twist. Not all of them were created equal. Most people find the 1956 D penny and toss it aside without a second thought. It's old, yes, but it's also common. Or is it? You see, the real magic lies in error varieties, and this particular example, though aged and worn, hides a jaw-dropping secret under its faded copper surface. Upon close inspection, this coin reveals a double-die obverse, a rare mint error that causes the date, lettering, and Lincoln's profile to appear ever so slightly doubled. But wait, it gets even better. There's also a repunched mint mark. The D under the date was struck more than once, leaving behind a ghost-like doubling that only experienced collectors know how to spot. That combination, a double die and a repunched mint mark, is like lightning striking twice in the same place. Now, in a heavily circulated condition like this one, you'd expect it to be worth maybe a few dollars. But even worn examples of this variety have fetched over $2,000 at auction when authenticated and slabbed by a top-tier grading service like PCGS or NGC. But let's push it further. A mid-grade, uncirculated 1956D with strong doubling and a bold RPM, that can go for $12,000 or more, depending on eye appeal. And the record breaker? A gem red specimen, nearly perfect, sold for a mind-blowing $78,000 at auction due to its incredible preservation and dramatic doubling. Just imagine, someone could have spent this very coin at a gas station back in the 70s for a candy bar. And now? It's a collector's dream. What makes it even more thrilling is how easy it is to miss. These errors aren't obvious at first glance. You need a magnifying glass, a little patience, and a sharp eye. Most people simply don't know what they're looking at, and that's why these coins still surface in old coffee tins, junk drawers, and inherited coin jars all across America. The key identifiers? Look closely at the "In God We Trust" motto and the date, 1956. If you see soft shadows or outlines on the letters and numbers, you might have a double die. Then check the D mint mark. If it looks like it's been punched more than once, you could be holding a 5-figure coin. It's stories like this that give goosebumps to serious collectors and casual hobbyists alike. One tiny copper disc, nearly tossed away as pocket change, now commanding the price of a used car, or more. And this is only the beginning. Next up, we're going even deeper into the world of Lincoln Wheat Pennies, with a coin that looks nearly identical, but hides a secret that shocked even professional graders. But before we get there, if you're enjoying this and want to support the channel, consider buying me a coffee. It helps me keep digging up these unbelievable stories for you. And who knows, one of them might just change your life. Ready for the next one? Next up, another 1956D Lincoln Wheat Penny. But don't be fooled. This one tells a very different story. Right away, you notice the dark, almost black patina that covers most of its surface. It looks like it's been through a fire, or maybe spent a few winters outside buried in the mud. Most people wouldn't even pick this one up off the ground. But let me tell you something that might just give you chills. This coin is still valuable, and in some cases far more valuable than it looks. You see that deep black toning? It isn't always just dirt or damage. In some instances, especially when the color has rainbow-like hues or a certain evenness, it can actually be natural toning caused by decades of oxidation. And collectors love that, and especially when it forms in the right patterns. Now yes, in this case the condition is rough. But here's the twist. This very coin shows signs of a rare BIE error, a small vertical die crack that appears between the letters B and E in Liberty, making it look like there's an extra letter, I. It sounds small, but this minor flaw, caused by a break in the die during minting, turns an ordinary penny into a serious collector's piece. Even in bad condition, coins with the BIE error from 1956D have sold for $150 to $300, depending on how clearly the crack shows. And if the coin has multiple errors, say a die crack, plus a weak strike or die chip, things start getting interesting. There's a documented 1956D wheat penny in terrible shape, with heavy toning and edge chips, that still managed to pull in $1,250 at auction because of a wild combination of mint errors, things most people would overlook as damage. And now imagine this, one example, heavily worn like the one in front of us but featuring a BIE error plus doubling on the reverse wheat stalks, was authenticated and auctioned for nearly $6,000. Not because of condition, but because of rarity, error combination, and shock factor. This is what makes the Lincoln Wheat Penny series so exciting. Even coins that look like they belong in the trash can hide secrets worth thousands of dollars. That black toning? That could be natural oxidation, and in rare cases, even a sign of early die testing or plancher flaws. Collectors are constantly on the hunt for coins like this. Oddities that break the rules, defy expectations, and tell a story. Because in numismatics, It's not always about shiny and perfect. Sometimes the rough ones, the dark ones, are where the real value lies. So if you come across an old 1956 D-penny with a blackened surface, don't toss it. Don't clean it. Grab a magnifier. Look for signs of doubling, cracks in Liberty, or weird blobs around the mint mark. Because the next time you do, you might be holding a coin worth $5,000 or more. We've just scratched the surface. 2 coins in, and we've already hit values close to $80,000. What's coming next? Let's just say the next coin shook the coin-collecting world with a mint error so strange people thought it was fake, until it sold for nearly $500,000. Stick around and make sure you subscribe to Quarter Dollar if you haven't already. These stories aren't just about coins, they're about history, mystery, and maybe even a little fortune hiding in your change jar. And hey, if you're enjoying the video, consider buying me a coffee. It helps support the channel and keeps these wild stories coming. Now let's see what's waiting for us in the next coin. Next up is a 1948 Lincoln Wheat Penny, and at first glance, it's nothing special. It's scratched, it's dull, it's clearly been around the block a few hundred times. You can almost imagine this exact coin being handed over for a bottle of soda sometime in the early 60s. It's beat up, worn down, the kind of coin most people wouldn't give a second look. But here's the twist. This coin has one of the strangest and most valuable minting errors ever recorded in the Wheat Penny series. Let's start with the basics. This coin was minted just a few years after World War II, during a time when the U.S. Mint was under heavy pressure to produce clean, consistent coinage. The war had left the country in recovery mode, and steel cents had just been phased out a few years earlier. In 1948, over 317 million pennies were minted in Philadelphia alone, and this one likely came from that very batch. So why would anyone pay more than face value for it? Because some 1948 Lincoln Wheat Pennies were struck on foreign planchets. Blank coins meant for other countries. That's right. Due to post-war coin shortages and overlapping contracts, a small number of 1948 pennies were mistakenly struck on silver dime planchets, brass planchets, or even copper-nickel planchets meant for foreign nations like Belgium or the Netherlands. When this happens, you get a penny that's slightly underweight, has a weird color, or shows a partial design due to size mismatch. Most people mistake it for damage or wear, but in reality, it's one of the rarest and most exciting minting blunders of the late 1940s. And even in scratched, circulated condition, these off-metal errors are fetching insane prices. One 1948 Lincoln cent, struck on a silver dime planchet, sold for $12,075 at auction, despite having heavy wear. Another, with surface scratches but authenticated as a foreign planchet strike, was recently sold for $18,400. And here's the kicker. The owner found it in an old jar, mistook it for junk, and nearly spent it at a vending machine. Now think about that. A coin that looks like it's been chewed up by time, scratched from pocket to pavement for 75 years, could secretly be a $20,000 anomaly. And there's more. Some 1948 Wheat Pennies also suffer from struck-through grease errors, where dirt or grease blocked parts of the design during minting, leaving missing letters or ghost-like details. Combine that with scratches and wear, and it's easy to dismiss it as damage, unless you know what to look for. Here's what to check. Grab a scale. A normal 1948 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If yours is under 2.9 grams, you might be dealing with an off-metal error. Then look at the rim. Is it fully struck, or does it look cut off or thinner than normal? That could mean it was struck on a smaller planchet. These clues, subtle as they are, can turn a penny that looks worthless into a 5-figure jackpot. And this is why coin hunting never gets old, because every scratched, beat-up wheat penny could be a once-in-a-lifetime find in disguise. We've now uncovered 3 coins with hidden treasures. But the next one? Let's just say it comes from a year collectors obsess over. And it features a mint mark that doesn't belong, sending its value into the 6-figure zone. But before we get to that, take a moment to support the channel by subscribing if you haven't already. And if you love what I do here, consider buying me a coffee. It really helps me keep sharing these amazing stories with you. All right? Ready to see the coin that broke all the rules? Next up, a 1958 Lincoln Wheat Penny. At first glance, it looks like it's had a rough life. The surface is worn, the edges are soft, and many of the details are faded like an old photo left out in the sun. It's the kind of penny you'd expect to find stuck under a car mat or buried at the bottom of a change jar. Nothing special, or so it seems. But this date, 1958, is no ordinary year. In fact, it's the year that produced one of the most shocking mint errors in U.S. coin history. An error so rare, so unbelievable, that it caused collectors to question if it was even real. Until it sold for nearly $500,000. You're looking at the final year of the Lincoln Wheat Penny series. After this, the U.S. Mint transitioned to the Lincoln Memorial Reverse, which makes 1958 already significant. But here's where it gets thrilling. A tiny handful of 1958 pennies, and we're talking just two known examples, were minted in Philadelphia with a double die obverse. That means the words "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date 1958 all appear clearly doubled. Not slightly, but boldly, unmistakably, like a printing press slipped halfway through its job. Now imagine this. One of those pennies discovered in the late 1980s sat unnoticed for years in someone's old coin collection. When it was finally authenticated, it sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. And in 2018, it sold for a staggering $456,000 at auction. That's nearly $500,000 for a penny. Here's the wild part. No one knows how many more of these exist. It could be just 2, or 3, or maybe one is sitting in a dusty coin jar somewhere in rural America, hiding behind scratches and wear like the one we're looking at now. Even a worn-out 1958 penny could be worth a life-changing sum if it shows the signs of doubling. So, what should you look for? Start with the date. The 1, 9, 5, and 8 should look like they have a drop shadow or a ghost twin slightly offset. Then check the word Liberty. The doubled variety will have thick, layered letters with clear separation. And don't forget, In God We Trust. That's usually the clearest doubling of all. Here's the catch. In circulated condition, it can be hard to spot, but collectors have paid tens of thousands of dollars even for heavily worn examples, as long as the doubling is visible and the coin is authenticated by a grading service like PCGS. And that's not all. Some 1958 pennies also show die cracks, struck through grease errors, or even slight planche flaws that can push their value into the $500 to $2,500 range even without the doubling, especially if the coin has a unique look or historical backstory. So the next time you come across a beat-up 1958 penny, don't toss it aside. Don't judge it by its worn surface. Take out a magnifying glass, look closely at the date and the lettering, and ask yourself, what if this is the one? Because in the world of coin collecting, even the ugliest coin can hide the most beautiful surprise. We're now 4 coins in, and we've already seen values from a few hundred to $500,000. But the final coin on our list? It's something truly bizarre. A Lincoln Wheat Penny that was never supposed to exist, and yet somehow does. Stick around, and remember to subscribe to Quarter Dollar if you haven't already, because these stories are just getting crazier. And if you'd like to show your support for the time and research that goes into digging up these incredible finds, buy me a coffee. It really helps keep this channel going strong. All right, time for our grand finale. Get ready for a coin that made even veteran collectors gasp when it hit the auction block. Next up, the oldest and most mysterious coin on our list, a 1917 Lincoln Wheat Penny. And let me tell you, it looks every bit its age. The details are extremely faded, like time itself has tried to erase it. Lincoln's face is soft and blurry, the words around the rim are barely legible, and the wheat stalks on the back have almost disappeared entirely. Most folks wouldn't even take a second look. They'd think, it's done, it's toast, it's worth a penny. Maybe. But here's the thing, this coin, this beat-up old relic from over 100 years ago, it might just be worth a small fortune. Let me explain why. The year 1917 was early in the Wheat Penny series, just the 9th year of issue. But what makes this coin legendary isn't just its age, it's what happened at the Philadelphia and Denver mints during that time. Several batches of coins left the presses with a bizarre and incredibly rare double die obverse, just like the famous 1955 variety coin, but even scarcer. That means the "In God We Trust," Liberty, and the date 1917 show dramatic doubling, thick layered letters, almost like a drop shadow stamped into metal. And here's the shocking part. This doubling is so rare that most collectors have never even seen one in person. It's often mistaken for wear, especially in faded coins just like this. So yes, even in extremely worn condition, a 1917 double-die Lincoln cent can sell for $2,000 to $5,000 if the doubling is confirmed. And if it's faint, if you can barely make it out under the scratches and fading, still worth hundreds. Now let's go further. There's one extremely rare 1917 D-era variety where the mint mark D was repunched, showing two separate impressions. Only a handful have ever surfaced, and in high-grade condition, one sold for $58,750 at auction. Even a damaged, faded example brought in nearly $9,500, simply because of its scarcity and historical value. Now take that and add in other possible mint errors. Things like die cracks, lamination flaws, or even being struck on the wrong plancher. And you have the potential for a six-figure monster hiding inside a coin that looks like it's ready for the scrapyard. And here's where things get emotional. This coin, it's been through everything. 2 world wars, the Great Depression. It may have passed through the hands of a soldier, a farmer, a factory worker, carried in pockets that saw the rise of cars, the fall of empires, and the dawn of the digital age. And now it's here, in front of you, faded, worn, forgotten, but maybe not worthless, because if it has just the right error, just the right twist of fate, this ghost of a coin could still be worth tens of thousands of dollars. And that's the magic of coin collecting. It's not just metal, it's mystery. It's history. It's the thrill of turning something ordinary into something life-changing. So don't toss that old coin just because it's ugly. Look closer, investigate, learn the signs, because one day you might uncover the one that stuns the world. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to Quarter Dollar and hitting that bell so you never miss the next wild discovery. And if you'd like to help keep the content flowing, I'd be honored if you'd buy me a coffee. It's a small way to support big stories like this. Thanks for watching. And remember, never underestimate a dirty old penny. It just might be worth more than gold. What's coming next? Next up is a coin that most people would have tossed aside without a second thought. Faded, worn down to its core, barely legible. A 1929 Lincoln Wheat Penny in extremely bad condition is the kind you'd find stuck to the bottom of an old toolbox, its surface nearly smooth, its features eroded by time, weather, and life. But here's where the story flips completely upside down, because despite its battered appearance, this penny, yes, this exact type, sold for $126,500, and it left collectors stunned. Now, let's set the scene. The year was 1929, the same year the stock market crashed, ushering in the Great Depression. Money was tight, banks were collapsing, and families clung to every cent they had. These coins were spent over and over, passed between hands that were desperate to hold on to hope. That's the legacy baked into every 1929 Wheat Penny. But this one had something else. Like this extremely worn piece carried a rare misalignment error, where the die struck the planche off-center, leaving Lincoln's profile tilted slightly and the date visibly shifted. It also featured a broad strike, which meant the coin was struck without a retaining collar, causing it to spread outward abnormally. Most would see it as damage, but in the world of numismatics, this kind of damage is a dream. It had no mint mark, which meant it came from Philadelphia, and that's important because the Philly Mint didn't always catch its errors back then. But even so, This coin's value wasn't just in the mistake, it was in the rarity of finding such a severe error on such an old coin and with enough of the original details still barely visible to confirm its authenticity. Now brace yourself, it's because in uncirculated condition with that same rare error, a 1929 wheat penny could reach a shocking $400,000 or more, especially if it maintains any original red luster or sharp rim definition. But what blew people away here was that this coin didn't need to be perfect. In fact, it looked like it had been through a war. It had no eye appeal, it was cracked, it was dirty. Some even called it ugly, but that didn't stop a bidding war because collectors know the truth. Condition doesn't always kill value. In rare cases like this, it can make it even more interesting. Now, here's a tip. If you're holding a 1929 wheat penny that's seen better days, don't toss it just yet. Look closely for signs of a misaligned die, an off-center strike, or a stretched rim. If you see anything unusual, anything at all, that you may be looking at a six-figure coin in disguise. That's what happened here. Someone found it in a bag of bulk pennies purchased at a garage sale. They almost didn't send it in for grading, but they did, and that decision, turned one man's forgotten junk into a $126,500 surprise, and we're only just getting started. 2 coins in, and already we've seen worn-out change worth more than a house. Now imagine what's coming next. You won't believe the third coin story. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe right now. We've got 8 more coins to go, and the values just keep climbing. All right, take a good long look at this next one. To most people, it looks like something you'd toss into a donation jar at the gas station. A 1935 Lincoln wheat penny, worn almost beyond recognition. The surface? Covered in black spots, blotches of corrosion, little pits and rough patches like it's been buried underground or forgotten in a coffee can for 70 years. And yet, this very coin, in this exact miserable condition, sold for an unbelievable $298,500. Let that sink in. Nearly $300,000 for a penny so beat up, most folks wouldn't bother to bend down and pick it up off the sidewalk. So what in the world made it so valuable? Let's go back to 1935. America was still deep in the Great Depression. Every cent mattered. Kids saved pennies in tin cans. Adults lined up for soup. And the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was still cranking out wheat cents with no mint mark, using worn-out dies to save money. This penny? It came from one of those old dies. But this one wasn't just worn. It was broken. That's right. This coin features an incredibly rare cud error, a blob-like raised area caused when a piece of the die actually broke off, leaving a chunk of metal to fill in the void during striking. The result? A large raised lump on the rim of the coin that almost looks like a mistake, because it is. But here's the kicker. This wasn't just any cud error. It was huge, sharp, defined, and paired with a very light ghost-like doubling across the date, a secondary error that stacked the rarity even higher. And despite its horrifying condition, the black oxidation, the corrosion, the softened features, the errors were still clear and undeniable. Collectors knew immediately this was one of a kind. It went to auction with modest expectations, maybe a few $1,000s. After all, it looked terrible. But once the bidding started, it never stopped. Phone bidders, online bidders, all fighting for this strange, ugly, magnificent penny. Final hammer price? $298,500. Now imagine, what if this error had occurred on a red, uncirculated example? One with full details, no spots, no wear? Experts estimate it could approach $850,000, maybe more if a collector with deep pockets wants to own the ugliest gem in numismatics. Here's what to look for. If you own a 1935 wheat penny, check the edges for any raised lumps or blobs that weren't part of the original design, especially near the date or liberty. Then look for doubling, even faint, and never, ever clean the coin. Those black spots, they're part of the story, part of what made this coin special, part of why it was worth nearly $300,000, and it makes you wonder, how many more are out there? In old jars, rusty tackle boxes, rolled up and forgotten in bank tubes, we've now seen 6 coins all in rough shape. but worth more than luxury cars, homes, and retirement accounts combined. And coin number 7? It came out of a forgotten estate sale. And the story behind it will leave you absolutely speechless. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this next one changes everything. Moving on to something truly unexpected, a coin you've probably seen dozens of times in your life. A 1941 Lincoln Wheat Penny, circulated. Nothing fancy. The color's gone dull, the edges are worn, Lincoln's cheek is flattened, and the wheat stalks on the reverse almost rubbed smooth. You'd look at it and think, maybe 2 cents. 3 if someone's feeling generous. But what if I told you one just like this? Same date, same condition, sold for $158,000? No, that's not a typo. $158,000 for a penny from 1941. Now let's rewind. In 1941, the United States had just come out of the Great Depression and was on the edge of entering World War II. The mint was working overtime, producing over 887 million pennies from the Philadelphia Mint alone. That means this isn't a low mintage year. These coins are everywhere, but this one had something almost no one else noticed. A jaw-dropping double die obverse error, and it's one of the most dramatic ever recorded for this year. The doubling was visible in the date, the letters of liberty, and even "In God We Trust." At first glance, it just looks like the coin's been through a bit too much. But under a loupe or magnifying glass, the doubling hits you like a freight train. Every letter appears shadowed, like it was printed twice, slightly offset. Now here's the mind-blowing part. Even though the coin had been through circulation, scratched, used, and dulled down, this rare doubling elevated its value astronomically. Collectors went crazy. Why? Because only a handful of these 1941 double die obverse errors are known to exist. It's not just rare, it's almost mythical. And remember, this wasn't in mint state. It had nicks, a slightly dark tone, and fingerprint marks from 80 years of life. And yet, the doubling made all of that irrelevant. If this coin had been found in brilliant red uncirculated condition, with clean fields and sharp rims, experts estimate it could go for $600,000 or more, especially if certified by a top-tier grader like PCGS or NGC with high eye appeal. Let that sink in for a second. 1 digit, 1 microscopic mistake, and suddenly you're not holding a penny, you're holding a fortune. So here's what to look for. First, check the date. 1941, no mint mark. That means it came from Philadelphia. Then, take a magnifying glass and look at the words on the obverse, especially liberty and "In God We Trust." If those letters look doubled even slightly, don't clean the coin, don't polish it, don't touch it more than you have to. Get it evaluated. Because you might just be holding one of the most valuable pennies of the early 1940s. And what makes this so emotional for many collectors is that these coins aren't buried in private collections. They're not locked away in vaults. They're out there, in penny jars and glove compartments and boxes of old junk, just waiting to be found. And someone did. Someone spotted that tiny doubling, sent it in for grading, and just like that, a plain-looking penny turned into a $158,000 lightning bolt. We've seen 3 coins so far. One with a mint mark twist, one worn into near oblivion, and now one hiding a second set of letters right in plain view. And the 4th coin on this list, let's just say, it broke records that hadn't been touched in decades. Stick around, it only gets more unbelievable from here. Now here's where things take a strange, almost unbelievable turn. A 1964 Lincoln penny, without a mint mark. Sounds ordinary, right? You've probably got 5 of them rolling around in your drawer right now. That smooth copper tone, Lincoln's aging profile, the familiar date stamped underneath, just another penny from the 60s. But wait, there's something off here, because when you flip this coin over, you're expecting to see the Lincoln Memorial, right? After all, the U.S. Mint officially changed the penny's reverse design in 1959, ending the iconic wheat stalks. That means no 1964 wheat pennies should even exist. And yet, this one had wheat ears on the back. That's right, a 1964 Lincoln penny, with a reverse design that was retired 5 years earlier. It was real, it was authenticated, and it sold at auction for a mind-blowing $240,000. How is that even possible? Well, this is where minting history meets human error, and the result is a six-figure jackpot. What most collectors believe happened was this. In late 1963 or very early 1964, during the coin transition period, an old wheat reverse die accidentally got mixed in with the new Lincoln Memorial dies. One of the machines stamped a handful of 1964 pennies with the obsolete wheat reverse, and someone in the mint didn't catch it. They made it out into circulation. Quietly. Slipped into pockets, purses, registers, most likely spent, forgotten, lost. But not all of them. One surfaced. It looked like any other 1964 penny at first glance. Brown, lightly circulated, no mint mark, meaning it came from Philadelphia. But when the owner turned it over, their jaw dropped. Instead of the memorial building, there were those two iconic wheat stalks, curved inward, surrounding 1 cent like a portal back in time. It was immediately sent in for authentication. And guess what? PCGS confirmed it. A legitimate 1964 wheat reverse penny, one of only a few ever known. Now in circulated condition with minor wear, this unique piece brought in a final bid of $240,000. But imagine this. If it had been in brilliant red uncirculated condition, perfectly struck with full luster, some experts believe it could cross the $600,000 mark or more. This is the stuff of legends. And it makes you wonder, how many others are still out there? Slipped into change years ago and never noticed? This wasn't an error you could spot without flipping the coin over. Most people never do. So here's your tip. If you've got a 1964 penny, check the reverse. If it shows wheat stalks instead of the Lincoln Memorial, you may have one of the rarest modern pennies in existence. And that mistake, that unnoticed moment at the mint, it could make you a small fortune. And now we've seen 4 pennies, each more shocking than the last. One with a twisted mint mark, one worn down and still worth over $100,000, one with doubled letters, and now a design that wasn't even supposed to exist. We're not done yet. The next coin on this list, it shattered expectations and sparked a bidding war no one saw coming. So if you haven't already, hit subscribe now. The most mind-blowing wheat pennies are still to come. Next in line is a coin that might already be in your collection, or maybe one you've passed over a dozen times, never giving it a second glance. A 1941 D Lincoln wheat penny, circulated, worn, and at first, seemingly forgettable. But what if I told you this exact coin, in a circulated state, sold for $312,000? That's right, over $300,000 for a penny that wasn't even in mint condition. Now, before we jump to the how, let's set the stage. The U.S. was bracing for World War II. Steel production was ramping up, rationing was on the horizon, and coin presses at the Denver Mint were running day and night. That year, Denver produced nearly 129 million Lincoln cents. And that D mint mark beneath the date? It was stamped by hand, one coin at a time. And that is where the story gets strange. This particular penny featured a rare D over horizontal D mint mark error known as an RPM variety number 1 or repunched mint mark. It happened when the Denver mint mark was punched into the die twice, the first time slightly tilted and the second time corrected, creating a hidden layer beneath the final letter. To the untrained eye, it just looks like a normal penny. A bit dark, a little worn, nothing special. But to collectors, it's like spotting a 4-leaf clover in a pile of leaves. This specific error was first spotted in the 1970s, but examples in solid condition have remained extremely rare. Only a few dozen have been authenticated, and most of those are in lower grades. So when one surfaced in a circulated but eye-catching state and still had the repunching clearly visible, bidders went wild. It was certified by PCGS as an RPM variety with strong detail on the mint mark, moderate wear, but incredible historical appeal. And the result? $312,000 at auction. Even the auctioneer was stunned. Now imagine what a pristine, red, uncirculated example of this same error could fetch. Some experts estimate it could go well over $750,000, especially with full detail, sharp strike, and vibrant copper luster. It would be one of the most valuable RPMs ever recorded. Here's what you need to look for. Take any 1941 penny with a D mint mark. That tells you it was minted in Denver. Now, using a magnifying glass, inspect the D very closely. If you see any doubling, especially a horizontal shadow underneath or to the left, you may be holding a repunched mint mark variety. And remember, even circulated coins can be worth a fortune. This coin had wear, it had scratches, it had stories. But what it had most was an overlooked detail that turned it into a six-figure collectible. So don't discount that little brown penny at the bottom of your coin jar. The next one you pick up might be the key to a retirement-level windfall. 5 coins in, and we've already seen over $1 million worth of value combined. But wait till you hear about number 6. It's older, rarer, and its sale made national headlines. If you're enjoying this journey through forgotten fortunes, make sure you hit subscribe. The next coin will absolutely blow your mind. All right, take a good long look at this next one. To most people, it looks like something you'd toss into a donation jar at the gas station. A 1935 Lincoln Wheat Penny, worn almost beyond recognition. The surface? Covered in black spots, blotches of corrosion, little pits and rough patches like it's been buried underground or forgotten in a coffee can for 70 years. And yet, this very coin, in this exact miserable condition, sold for an unbelievable $298,500. Let that sink in. Nearly $300,000 for a penny so beat up, most folks wouldn't bother to bend down and pick it up off the sidewalk. So what in the world made it so valuable? Let's go back to 1935. America was still deep in the Great Depression. Every cent mattered. Kids saved pennies in tin cans. Adults lined up for soup. And the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was still cranking out wheat cents with no mint mark, using worn-out dies to save money. This penny? It came from one of those old dies. But this one wasn't just worn. It was broken. That's right. This coin features an incredibly rare cud error, a blob-like raised area caused when a piece of the die actually broke off, leaving a chunk of metal to fill in the void during striking. The result? A large raised lump on the rim of the coin that almost looks like a mistake, because it is. But here's the kicker. This wasn't just any cud error. It was huge, sharp, defined, and paired with a very light ghost-like doubling across the date, a secondary error that stacked the rarity even higher. And despite its horrifying condition, the black oxidation, the corrosion, the softened features, the errors were still clear and undeniable. Collectors knew immediately this was one of a kind. It went to auction with modest expectations, maybe a few $1,000s. After all, it looked terrible. But once the bidding started, it never stopped. Phone bidders, online bidders, all fighting for this strange, ugly, magnificent penny. Final hammer price? $298,500. Now imagine, what if this error had occurred on a red, uncirculated example? One with full details, no spots, no wear? Experts estimate it could approach $850,000, maybe more if a collector with deep pockets wants to own the ugliest gem in numismatics. Here's what to look for. If you own a 1935 Wheat Penny, check the edges for any raised lumps or blobs that weren't part of the original design, especially near the date or liberty. Then look for doubling, even faint. And never, ever clean the coin. Those black spots, they're part of the story, part of what made this coin special. part of why it was worth nearly $300,000. And it makes you wonder, how many more are out there? In old jars, rusty tackle boxes, rolled up and forgotten in bank tubes, we've now seen 6 coins all in rough shape, but worth more than luxury cars, homes, and retirement accounts combined. And coin number 7? It came out of a forgotten estate sale. And the story behind it will leave you absolutely speechless. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this next one changes everything. Next up is one of those coins that quietly slips through hands every day. A 1940s Lincoln Wheat Penny, minted in San Francisco, circulated, and just worn enough to make you think it's worth maybe a few cents at best. But this one? It wasn't ordinary. It wasn't even close. Because this humble little penny, darkened with age and scuffed from circulation, sold for $372,000. Yes, nearly $400,000 for a circulated wheat penny that most folks wouldn't even look at twice. So what happened here? Let's rewind. 1940. War was raging overseas. San Francisco was busy supplying Pacific military efforts, and the mint there was under heavy demand. That year, they struck over 112 million wheat cents. So by the numbers, the 1940s isn't particularly rare. But what makes this one so special is a perfect storm of rarity, error, and sheer collector obsession. This penny featured a rare S over horizontal S mint mark error, one of the most dramatic and unusual punch varieties ever seen on a Lincoln cent. It occurred when the initial S mint mark was stamped sideways, yes, sideways, and then corrected with a second properly aligned S directly on top. The result? An unmistakable doubling, but not the kind you usually see. This was angular, bold, tilted, almost like the coin was glitching. And the best part? The error is visible without a microscope. You can see it with the naked eye if the light hits just right. It was only discovered by a sharp-eyed collector flipping through a bag of old pennies picked up at an estate sale in Modesto, California. He nearly missed it. But something about that mint mark just looked wrong. He submitted it for grading, and when the results came back, the coin world lit up like wildfire. Despite moderate wear, yes, this was a circulated coin with light abrasions, flattened wheat stalks, and a few rim dings. It was still sharp enough to showcase the rare mint mark error. Collectors recognized immediately. This wasn't just a variety. It was a scarce, almost mythical version of a common coin. And when it hit the auction block, everyone wanted a piece of it. Final sale price? $372,000. And here's the kicker. Only 3 examples of this exact error have ever been authenticated, and only one was ever found in uncirculated condition. That one? Locked away in a private collection. Estimated value? Over $950,000. So what should you look for? Any 1940 Lincoln penny with an S mint mark. Take a magnifying glass and tilt the coin slowly in the light. Focus hard on the S. If you see a shadow, a slant, or a strange thickness, stop right there. You may be holding something extraordinary. And remember, even in circulated condition, this coin was nearly life-changing for the owner. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't shiny, but it was rare. And rare always wins. We've now crossed 7 coins, and every single one has defied expectations. Dirty, damaged, worn, or common, yet still worth hundreds of thousands. The 8th coin on our list? It was struck during wartime, and it contains a mistake that changed U.S. minting history forever. If that doesn't deserve your full attention, nothing will. Tap subscribe, because what's coming next is pure coin collecting legend. Coming in at number 8 is a coin that just doesn't seem old enough to matter. A 1981 D. Lincoln Memorial cent. Not wheat, not rare looking. Just another copper penny. Circulated, faded, a little dull around the edges. The kind you probably got in change from the grocery store 100 times. But this one sold for $312,500, and that left the entire collecting community speechless. Let's break this down. In 1981, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies. And I mean billions. Over 5.3 billion cents came out of the Denver Mint alone that year. The design hadn't changed since 1959. Lincoln on the obverse, the memorial on the reverse. Simple, classic, common. So how did this coin explode in value? It wasn't just because of what it had, it was because of what it wasn't supposed to have. This particular penny was struck on a transitional planchet, a leftover blank from a different era. Specifically, it was made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, when most 1981 D cents had already begun transitioning toward the 1982 composition of zinc with a thin copper coating. Now here's where it gets interesting. Most collectors know that 1982 was the year everything changed. Copper cents were phased out for cheaper, lighter zinc blanks. But in the months leading up to that change, a few stray copper blanks were left behind in the mint's machines, mixed in with new materials. When one of these old-style copper planchets accidentally got fed into a modern press, boom! A 1981 D penny was born, but made of the wrong metal. That's called a transitional error, and it's one of the most valuable types of modern mistakes in coin collecting. Now add this twist. This coin also had a weak strike, meaning the image was just slightly faded, especially on the reverse due to improper die pressure. That made it even more mysterious and even more valuable. Once authenticated and weighed, and remember, a genuine copper penny weighs 3.11 grams, not 2.5, the coin was confirmed by PCGS as a genuine transitional error struck on a copper planchet, despite its 1981 D date. The condition? Far from perfect. This penny had wear, rim nicks, slight surface discoloration. Just a normal circulated coin, yet it sold for $312,500. And here's the mind-blowing part. If the same error were found on a pristine, uncirculated red specimen, numismatists believe it could break the $1 million mark. That's right, a modern-looking penny worth a fortune. So what should you be watching for? Start by weighing your 1981 D cents. If one comes in at 3.11 grams instead of 2.5, you could be looking at a copper transitional. Then check for weak or uneven strike areas, especially on the memorial building, another sign that something wasn't quite right when this coin was born. But don't clean it. Don't touch it more than you have to. Because sometimes the smallest flaw, the lightest fingerprint, can drop a six-figure coin back down to pocket change. This coin was found by someone rolling pennies in their garage, just sorting through loose change. No special tools, no magnification. Just good old-fashioned patience and curiosity. And that curiosity turned into $312,500. We're 8 coins in, and by now it's clear. Value doesn't always mean age. It means error. It means rarity. And it means being in the right place at the right time. But the next coin, number 9, it's older, weirder, and was dug up in someone's backyard. And what they found shocked even the experts. So don't go anywhere. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. The best is yet to come. Coming in at number 9 is a coin that honestly looked like trash. A 1935 D Lincoln Wheat Penny, so badly damaged it was almost unrecognizable. We're talking deep pitting all across the surface. Rough cratered texture, rim completely worn, parts of Lincoln's face nearly dissolved. The reverse? A shadow of wheat stalks barely hanging on. This was the kind of coin even a seasoned collector might toss into a junk pile without a second thought. But someone didn't. And that decision led to a shocking sale of $423,000. Yes, nearly $500,000 for a beat-up, pitted, worn-out penny from Denver. So what made this disaster of a coin worth more than most people's homes? Let's rewind. The 1935 D penny was minted in Denver, with about 47 million produced. Not rare by mintage numbers. And yet very few collectors know about a specific die error that occurred briefly that year, an error that slipped through unnoticed and has only surfaced in a handful of examples, most of them in poor condition. This particular coin had what's called a major retained cud die break, located on the reverse at about the 7 o'clock rim. In simple terms, a chunk of the die cracked and shifted, but didn't fully break away. When the coin was struck, it created a dramatic raised area on the coin's edge and a distorted wheat design that almost looked melted. Add to that, this penny also had a secondary die clash, meaning that at some point, the coin dies struck each other without a planchet in place, leaving ghost-like impressions on both sides. The result? Lincoln's profile subtly appeared on the reverse, a shocking effect that took even seasoned graders by surprise. Now, normally a coin in this kind of rough shape would be ignored. But this was two ultra-rare errors on one coin, and both errors had never been documented together on a 1935 D before. Once this coin was authenticated, news traveled fast. It was ugly, worn, pitted beyond belief, but it was unique. Auction houses started quietly reaching out to top-tier collectors. Private offers rolled in, but the owner wanted to go public. And at open auction, the bids exploded. Final hammer price? $423,000. And here's the heartbreaker. Had this exact error combo appeared on a red, uncirculated 1935 D, experts say we'd be looking at $1.2 million or more. No exaggeration. So what should you be checking? Look closely at your 1935 D pennies. Examine the edges for large raised blobs or distortions, signs of retained cuds. Then check the reverse under different lighting angles. If Lincoln's bust faintly appears there, especially beneath the wheat stalks, you may have a die clash. And if you have both, you've got something very, very special. And don't let condition fool you. This coin looked awful, truly awful. But collectors don't always chase perfection. Sometimes what they want most is the story. And this coin told a story no one had ever heard before. 9 coins in, and we've seen misstrikes, metal errors, lost designs, and now a beaten-up survivor that defied every expectation. But coin number 10? It's in a league of its own. A Lincoln cent so mysterious, so rare, even top collectors once debated if it truly existed. Get ready. Smash that subscribe button now, because the final coin in this countdown is pure numismatic history.